Bolliger & Mabillard, or B&M for short, is one of the most highly regarded manufacturers in the amusement industry and have built a total of 120 coasters since 1990. They are one of the most diverse manufacturers with almost any model you can think of, from stand-up coasters to flying coasters. I've had the pleasure of riding 16 of these coasters since 2011, and in this video I'm going to be ranking all of them, worst to best. Keep in mind, this is just my opinion, and you are definitely welcome to have a different opinion than mine. Number 16. Firebird at Six Flags America, the world's first B&M. This coaster started out as Iron Wolf at Six Flags Great America in 1990. Eventually, for the 2012 season, this ride was moved to Six Flags America as Apocalypse, to be renamed Firebird for the 2019 season and given new floorless trains. I was expecting it to be a little rough and have a B&M rattle since it was their first coaster, but unfortunately it went past my expectations and was even rougher. Hate to say it, Mike, but you got this one wrong.
Super smooth. Stepped out a headbanger.
This ride ended up giving me a nasty headache for the rest of the day, and personally I would rather be riding the SLC around the corner than this piece of trash. I wouldn't actually say the ride is trash, it does have its good moments, it's forceful in certain parts, and it does have a few good airtime pops and some laterals, but other than that, it's really rough, and if they could fix that, it might be a solid ride, but other than that, I don't think I'll be riding this ever again. Number 15. Rougarou at Cedar Point, originally opening in 1996 as Mantis, the world's tallest, fastest, and longest stand-up coaster. This is another flawless conversion. In fact, it was actually the first one, and it was definitely better than Firebird. I went into this ride thinking I was going to like it. The first half of the ride is pretty smooth and intense, but then all of a sudden you hit that inclined loop, and it's like being in a car accident. I don't know if I just got a bad ride on this, or the ride actually just sucks. A lot of people do praise this ride for being a good coaster, so I'm not sure if the fan base is just loyal, or something else is going on. So I'm willing to give this another chance when I go back to Cedar Point, hopefully later this year or in 2021. Number 14. Hydra at Dorney Park. This is another coaster with high praise that I just do not understand why it has the high praise. Now granted, I have not ridden this in 5 years, but when I ride a bad coaster, it sticks with me and why I don't like it. The ride starts out with a JoJo roll out of the station, which is a really good element, has some great hang time, and is the saving grace of this ride. The rest of the ride, it just vibrates along the track, gives no forces whatsoever, and it's just kinda boring. Even my brother, who doesn't know anything about coasters, agreed with me after getting off. That's a boring ride, and it was really rough. Like I said with Rougarou, I will give this ride another chance when I get back to Dorney, so for now, it's sitting at number 14. Number 13. Batman the Dark Knight at Six Flags New England. It seems like B&M flawless coasters are my least favorite model now that I'm looking at this list. When I first rode this way back in 2016, I actually really enjoyed it. Over the years, after getting a better taste for what I like and riding more coasters, I realized this ride isn't all that great. The ride is fairly short, and it always seems to give me a headache for some reason. It isn't rough, but it has a couple spots of headbanging. The ride is fairly forceful, and the zero-G roll is pretty good, but overall, the ride doesn't really have any unique features and kind of just falls flat. Number 12. Superman Ultimate Flight at Six Flags Great Adventure. This is the first and only B&M flying coaster on this list. There isn't much wrong with this ride besides the boring layout after the pretzel loop. The pretzel loop is really good, has some great forces, but that's just about it. Just a mediocre cloned ride that I ride every once in a while. Nothing wrong with it, but nothing great about it either. Number 11. Batman the Ride at Six Flags Great Adventure. This is where the list starts getting hard. Every ride on this list, starting with Batman, is a great ride. Batman the Ride is currently my least favorite invert, but it's still really good. The ride is compact, forceful, and whippy. Unfortunately, this one can be a little bit rough at times depending on when you catch it. I've yet to been on another Batman clone, but for now this one's fantastic, and I always ride it whenever I go to the park. Number 10. Great Bear at Hershey Park. Great Bear tops out Batman for having the smoother ride and a unique layout that interacts with the terrain. This ride is intense and whippy just like Batman and even has a little bit of airtime. The first time I rode this, I wasn't that big of a fan, but after my recent trip to Hershey, I tried out the back row and really enjoyed it. This ride is a tad bit overrated in my opinion, especially with the foot chopper section, as it isn't that good, but overall, the ride is fun, has some fun large inversions, and is definitely a ride that I want to ride every time I go to the park. Number 9. Talon at Dorney Park. From what I remember, Talon was one of the most smooth and intense coasters I've ever been on. Until 2019, this was my favorite invert until a trip to Cedar Point. The layout's pretty unique, with the only similar coaster being Patriot at Worlds of Fun. The ride only lands above Great Bear due to its longer layout, and it does a little bit more towards the end. Number 8. Valravn at Cedar Point. This ride tends to get a lot of hate, but I really enjoyed it. The ride doesn't give a ton of positive forces, however it does give some pretty good airtime and hang time. I also really enjoyed the whole dive gimmick, especially with that much height. I do have a few negatives about Valraven though. The vest restraints do restrict you from feeling a lot of the air time and hang time on some of the inversions and hills. Also, not to mention, if the ride stacks 3 trains, the 3rd train will slam to a stop on the final brake run. Unfortunately, I wanted to get more rides in it during my trip to Cedar Point, but unfortunately the line was always around 2 hours long and the ops were pretty slow. However, Valraven is overall a pretty good ride and doesn't deserve the hate. It only gets it because it's at Cedar Point. Number 7. Wild Eagle at Dollywood. I went into this ride with lower expectations, but they were surprisingly blown away. People say this ride is forceless and boring, however, I really enjoyed it. The ride pulls some decent positives and laterals around its course, and it even throws in a couple airtime moments for good measure. Flying in and out of the trees was so much fun, especially at night. The ride has a great sense of speed too, and it's also very overhated, just like Valraven. Number 6. Gatekeeper at Cedar Point. This is another ride that is said to be forceless, which it kind of is. The ride doesn't have many positive forces, however it does have some nice laterals and hang time, especially on the 0G rolls and the wing over drop. The thing that sets this above Wild Eagle is the near miss elements and the longer ride, along with variation of more elements. However, I only slightly prefer Gatekeeper over Wild Eagle, and they're a pretty close match. Number 5. Green Lantern at Six Flags Great Adventure. I can already see everyone commenting, Green Lantern sucks, or why the hell would you put Green Lantern that high? Well, to be honest with you, this ride is great. It's long, forceful, and has a great layout with lots of great elements. The ride is very fast paced, and for its age, it's pretty smooth. It really only has one bad spot of headbanging on the inclined loop. Also, not to mention, it even has some airtime mixed in there. I know people will disagree with me on this, and I'm fine with that. I enjoy Green Lantern, and I'm proud of it. Number 4. Bizarro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Bizarro has always been a favorite of mine. It's smooth, has great elements, and serves a long ride. Also, it even has some cool theming effects such as the mist, fire, and near miss effects. This was B&M's first ever Flawless, and it's holding up to be one of the best. All of the inversions are good, they're all smooth, and I don't even think there's any headbanging on this ride. The best element is absolutely that 0G roll, and I could ride this all day. Number 3. Raptor at Cedar Point. Raptor is currently my favorite invert. It has large inversions, insane forces, neck-breaking whip, and it does all this while providing a very smooth ride. Don't need to say a lot with this ride, you can just explain how good it is in a few sentences. Also, not to mention, this is one of the 3 coasters I've ever actually grayed out on. That's how forceful it is. Number 2. Dominator at King's Dominion. I went to this ride expecting an average Flawless coaster, but ended up falling in love with it. Both rides I got on it were fast, intense, and trimless. The trains flew through the course to the point where I was questioning what was even happening. I'm sure I also felt like this due to the fact that I literally slept for 2 hours the night before and barely ate that day, but that's besides the point. The drop on this ride whips you like crazy in the back row, especially in the farthest right seat. The vertical loop is forceful and massive. The overbank afterwards is taken with a great amount of speed, and after the mid-course breaks, if you're in the back row, airtime is guaranteed and it's really good. The corkscrews give a tad bit of headbanging, but that is most likely since the ride was going pretty fast that day. It may be slightly controversial to put this above Raptor, but I love this ride. Number 1. Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. I've talked about Nitro countless times in past videos, such as my top rides of each year, so I'll keep this short. Nitro is a great ride with a great drop, great flow to airtime, and a great helix. The ride has a slight rattle at the bottom of some of the drops, but it's easily ignorable. This is the only B&M Hyper I've ridden, and I can't wait to get on more, hopefully this 2020 season or 2021, due to a lot of parks being closed. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, comment down below a list of your favorite B&Ms, and don't forget to subscribe for future content from Radza Productions. Once again, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.